Welcome to the Bow Station, the Genesis Original Bow. Because of its simple and universal design, the Genesis bow is easy to maintain and repair. Keeping your bows in good working order will add to the safety and enjoyment of your archery lessons and practice. Local archery shops can be a great help in maintaining and repairing your bows. So let's dive in and give you everything you need to know about the Genesis compound bow. Let's get started with nomenclature, or naming the parts of the bow. If you have your workbook, turn to the bow diagram. Starting with the idler wheel at the top of the bow, we have the top limbs, the limb pockets, and the top limb bolt, which attaches everything to the riser. The riser has a cutout space that you look through that's the sight window. It also holds the arrow rest. The bow grip has a narrow part called the pivot point. The pivot point to the string creates the brace height, and it's specific to each bow model. This would be the bottom limb pocket with the bottom limb bolt, and these blue limbs would be the bottom limbs. At the very bottom of the bow, we have the cam, and the cam has the string running all the way up over the idler wheel and back down to the cam. At the center of the string, we have the knock locator, or knocking point. There's also some extra material called serving that protects the string. This is your center serving. When an archer is shooting the bow likes to face the archer. So this would be the face of the bow, and this would be the back of the bow. At the very bottom, holding the axle, would be the E-clips. All right, now you give it a try. When and how should you perform a safety inspection? Before the bow is being shot, if the bow has been dropped, or if there's been a dry fire. Starting with the string, we'll inspect for any fraying or any breaks. We'll make sure the string is in the string track of the cam and the wheel. We also want to make sure that the string is attached to the posts of the cam. Next, we'll start with the bow limbs. We always use a cotton ball to look for splinters. The cotton will snag if there's a split in the limb, and then that limb we know would need to be replaced. On the riser, you may see a chip or a scratch and the bow is fine to shoot. But if there's a major crack, then something traumatic has happened to the riser and it would need to be replaced. Next, let's inspect the cable guard and the cable guard slide. String and cable are attached, slide is moving. Now we have the arrow rest. Sometimes it may be bent back, you can flip it forward. If it's bent down, simply bend it back up in position. The knocking point is important to make sure it's in place, as well as the center serving is in good condition. At the bottom of the bow, we make sure the E-clips are attached on both sides of the cam. Moving to the limb pockets, we want to make sure that the limb bolts are adjusted evenly on both top and bottom. After the safety inspection, ask students to bring any damaged or suspect bows to your attention. The Genesis compound bow is designed to be shot from 20 to 10 pounds of draw weight. To adjust the draw weight, we use our 3/16 hex wrench, and we adjust the top limbs counterclockwise to loosen the bolts. 2 turns off the top and 2 turns out of the bottom. 1, 2, 1.5 pounds each turn equals 3 pounds that I've just loosened this bow. It was at 20 pounds, now it's set for 17 pounds. If I loosen the bolts 2 more times, 1, 2, always doing it even, 1, 2. Now I've taken 6 pounds out of the bow, so 6 from 20 is 14 pounds. 2 more times brings us to 6 turns. That brings us to approximately 9 pounds that we've loosened this draw weight. So the safe draw weight is between 20 and 10 pounds of draw weight. Now here's a quiz. How many turns would it take to loosen the draw to get to 10 pounds? To increase the poundage, I simply do the reverse. Hex key, 1 clockwise, 2 clockwise. Do the same on the bottom. 1, 2, constantly making sure that the gaps are even at the top and the bottom. 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 5, and 6. Now the limb pockets are snugly fit against the riser. The bow is set back to 20 pounds. An easy way to determine a left and a right-handed bow is to notice the shelf. This makes a correct L, that's a left-handed bow. This makes a backwards L, that's a right-handed bow. Now for some maintenance and repair. We start with the string, waxing the string only and not the serving areas. On the cable and the string, put a little bit of wax and then rub that in with your fingers. You want to wax your bowstring and cable about every 5 times the bow has been shot. So after a week of shooting in school, or if you have a 5-week league, you want to wax your strings and keep them lubricated. I had this bow turned down 6 turns, so it's approximately 10 pounds. When a bow is light pounded, sometimes the string can be pulled off the string trap. So now the string is loose, and how do we fix it? Simply take the bow, turn 2 more turns, 1, 2, so now I'm 8 turns out. 1, 2. Apply pressure and roll the string back into the string groove and roll it back on the idler wheel. Next, make sure that you reset and tighten the draw weight to 6 turns out, or approximately 10 pounds. Now the bow is back to safe operation. Replacing the rest on the Genesis original bow. Lay the bow down on a table so the rest is facing down. Use an Allen wrench to press the black plastic cap through the riser of the bow to remove the rest. Align your new rest in the exposed pocket on the riser of the bow. Press the new rest into the pocket with your thumb until it is fully seated. Next, let's address the nocking point. From the factory, a temporary nocking point is attached by shrink tube. We'll need to change this out and create a solid, permanent nocking point for competition. To do that, I've attached a bow square, and I've made sure that the bow square barely touches the rest, just as an arrow would. What I'm looking for is 0. I want to be 3/8 of an inch above 0, so almost at the bottom of the temporary nocking point on this bow. So I make a mark, then I'm going to remove the temporary nocking point. You can use a blade or a lighter. I simply heat up the shrink tube, being careful with the string, and then I can remove it from the string. Now, to demonstrate how we tie a nocking point, I'm going to use this arrow and this string to represent the serving string that will go on here. So I make a mark that represents where I'm going to be tying on my nocking point. And I start with a surgeon's knot. 1, 2. Then I do, on the back side, a simple overhand knot, just through 1 time. So that's my second knot. And I'm just stacking these knots. Then I do another overhand knot, stack it on top, then I go back to the other side. I'm going to make 7 knots. I start with a surgeon's knot, I do the overhand knots in the middle, and then I end with a surgeon's knot. Now ending 1, 2 with the surgeon's knot, I've created a permanent nocking point. We'll clip off the ends and burn the ends so they don't fray, and now you have a permanent nocking point. So now let's tie our nocking point to our string. I found my 0 and I moved up 3/8 of an inch and made a mark. If you don't have a bow vise, you can have someone hold the bow while you work on it. We want to take a piece of serving string about 14 inches long. We see our mark and we start with the first surgeon's knot. 1, 2. Then we go to the back side with an overhand knot. We're going to make 7 knots and stack them on top of each other. And then we finish with a surgeon's knot. Being careful, you can melt the ends, and now it won't come unfrayed. One thing worth mentioning is old style brass knock locators can become loose and fly off and are dangerous, so they're no longer allowed in NAS competition. That concludes the bow station. You're now ready to maintain and operate the Genesis original bow. For more information, refer to your NAS pocket guide or your workbook. Enjoy the Genesis bow, competing with honesty and integrity.